What if I told you that right now, there's an enterprise built entirely on unimaginable human suffering? Its core facility keeps captives, just like you and I, in cells, forcing them to move in repetitive loops over and over again for years on end, with no escape possible. Even the relief of eventual death won't save them. Their captors have designed methods to keep them alive, indefinitely even. Considering their great value to the company, they will stop at nothing to maintain them as long as possible. This hellhole is known as the Human Zoo. It's not talked about in the mainstream, of course. It is a place designed for only very special members of the highest of elite classes, individuals with incredible power and all the resources in the universe, allowing them to enjoy this cruel display. I say universe because the patrons of this place do not come from just Earth. At the facility's entrance, there is a gateway, where various beings from across the galaxy, and perhaps even further, may enter from. I am sure you are wondering how I know all of this. Well, believe it or not, I was born there. I did not even know I was human, at first. It took me a while to figure that one out. My youth was essentially spent staring out my enclosure's window, watching as the entities gawked in at me. I began to notice that some of them looked like me, and others radically different. However, without understanding anything else about the world around me, it meant very little. Once I matured, my display was arranged to appear as if it was a traditional American suburban household, the primary focus being the kitchen portion. They trained my pre-selected mate, and through the use of shock devices, to operate the kitchen in the most visible, appealing manner possible. The meals we created were all just for the show. That was the unit I spent most of my experience in. It is hard to say now, but it was probably 20 years. I was given several mates throughout that time, but there was only one that meant anything to me, Emily. She was very beautiful, but also sad. I don't think she had the mental fortitude it takes to live in the Human Zoo as long as she did. We didn't speak all that much, considering at the time, I didn't really know how, but I could somehow understand the sadness from deep within her eyes. She was not born in the facility. She was brought in from the outside and eventually seemed to lose touch with reality. She would murmur the words, "I'm sorry, little bear," to herself over and over again, until one day, she just collapsed. I didn't see her again for a long time, until I was moved to a traditional living room setup. Across from my unit, I could see an office setting with rows of cubicles and computers. Emily was in the second row, rigidly staring into a computer screen, her mouth somehow stitched into a strange fake smile. At that point, I began to truly understand the wickedness of our captors, and I wonder if they put me there on purpose for some sick experiment. About a year later, I was transferred into an area where I could see a kiosk at the entrance of the facility through my viewing window. I saw every type of individual from bizarre-looking extraterrestrials to elegant, well-dressed humans. Most of the non-humans paid for their entrance with these vials of blue liquid, although there was many forms of payment accepted there. I remember human money seemed the strangest to me though. It was just this silver coin that touched a device but didn't seem to give anything tangible to the establishment, which was a difficult concept for someone with my limited knowledge. A few years later was when I first saw Bran. He was a little human with two larger ones by his side, which I now understand are his parents. His father was an especially big man with an army jacket full of shiny insignias, and his mother was a tall, stern-looking woman. After paying, I was the first exhibit they came to. Bran stared in my window and gazed at me with a fascination I have yet to see in any other human. He then tugged on his dad's coat and pointed at me. I knew from that moment this was not just a normal child. The emptiness and desire behind his eyes knew no bounds. His father then nodded and took a photo of me, walking over to one of the facility's personnel to speak with them. Later that day, I awoke confused in a jumpsuit, connecting my arms together from behind me, so I couldn't move. I was stuck inside this dark space with the sound of an engine whirling somewhere nearby. I laid like that for hours until a giant door opened and a light shined into my eyes. I was then grabbed by 2 men and injected with a needle, putting me to sleep once again. The next time I woke up, I was inside another containment unit, not too unlike the one I had been in the majority of my life. There was a large viewing window, and I was surrounded by this table and chairs with these plastic versions of humans sitting in them, which I now know are called mannequins. Through the window, I could see a large kid's bedroom with a glass door at the other end looking out onto the ocean, which was something I had never seen before but learned about later in books. The little boy Bran crept up to the tank with a large smile and began to tap on the glass, his grin seeming to grow larger and larger as he stared in at his new toy. His father then came into my unit through a door on the side and put a book on the table in front of me called The Mount. He was then followed by a kind-looking old woman named Alice, who over the next few years taught me how to not only read the book, but about many other things. She worked in servitude of the family and seemed to appreciate them greatly for it. She'll tell me day in and out about how good my life was, showing me countless examples of other humans living without caretakers and suffering and pain. Often she stated that if I could just follow certain principles laid out in the book and be trusted, then I would have a good life. And for a while, I believed it. Aside from being locked in myself for hours at a time, once Bran grew bored of me, things were fine. However, the thought of Emily would return to me every now and then in my dreams, her body frozen in that office cubicle, staring into a computer screen until the end of time. It was just too much for me to bear, so I decided I would play my owner's game for a while until they unintentionally divulged enough information to me to plan her escape. This actually worked out very well. Over time, I learned how to get the family's facility access coin, the location of the zoo, and most importantly, where their family firearm was. Then one day while Bran's parents were away at a party, I made my move. After subduing Bran, I gained access to the gun. Holding her at gunpoint, I had Alice drive me to the family's plane and force their pilot to take me to the zoo. However, when we arrived to the facility, it wasn't there anymore. It was just this wide open dune surrounded by mountains, except for one thing lying on the sand. It was a small glass vial containing some of the blue liquid I had seen exchanged so many times before. As I looked closer, I realized there was also something buried underneath the sand. I started digging, and soon came the horrifying realization of what it was. Emily's body. How they knew I was coming, and exactly who I was coming for, I'll never know. Either way, I believe she was left as an offering to me. If I just give up, then we are even, and I can go on living my life any way I see fit, possibly even making a large amount of money off of the blue vial they left. Emily was the only thing in my life that felt real at all. And what the facility neglects to see is that you can only push life forms so far before they have nothing left to lose. And there isn't a thing in the world more dangerous than that.